Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I've literally watched all the stitches to this video, but this story that I'm about to tell today, even though it happened years ago, still gives me chills, and I feel like it has a lot to do with why I quit my job. So I used to work in long-term care, for those of you that don't know, pretty much a nursing home. I was a certified nursing assistant out of high school. This was my first big girl job, okay? So when I first started, I didn't know a lot about the different types of shifts, but there's pretty much 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. I worked the 7 to 3, which was 7 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. As time went on, I slowly started to transition to 3 to 11 to work around my college courses. But every now and then I would pick up an 11 to 7 shift. It didn't take long before I started working there where people were telling me about this one particular resident that had an issue with people of a certain color coming into his room. I didn't have too much interaction with this resident because, like I said, I only worked 7 to 3, and you didn't have to do a lot for him. Just go in and check on him and make sure he was okay. Bring him his food tray. Every now and then he might ask you for help to go to the bathroom, but that was about it. I had heard that this resident could get kind of nasty sometimes. I also heard that he had dementia, so he was like seeing stuff. And I also remember going in his room a couple times and seeing all of the mirrors in his room covered up. This is gonna come back later. So on my first 11 to 7, we'll call this nurse Patty. Patty pulled me aside and she was like, hey, this is the list of people, pretty much doing a report for when I first, clocked in, starting my shift. She told me who I had, who was total assist, which I had to do everything for, and who I could pretty much, let. So I noticed that this list had this certain patient's number on it, this certain resident's number on it. His room number was on there. But instead of it saying, just limited assistance or whatever, it was like total assist. So I asked, I'm like, I know I have him during the day and I just go in and check on him and make sure he's okay. If he rings the call light, I'll go in. But other than that, that's about it. When did he become a total assist? So she proceeds to tell me that the night before, he got so scared and so frantic and thought something was in his room that he jumped out of his bed and fell on the floor and did something to his hip. So at this point, currently, he's a total assist, meaning I have to go in, I have to check on him, I have to do everything for him. I said, cool, no problem. I start doing my rounds, I start checking on my people, passing out ice water, changing people, as I normally do. Literally not even 15 minutes into my shift, his call light is on. I go in, I make sure everything's okay. As soon as I get in, I kid you not, this man is literally in the fetal position. I walk up to him and I ask him if everything's okay. Obviously, when I walk up to him, I'm very careful because, like I stated before, he did not like people of my color coming into his room. During the day, he would make a big deal out of this. Like, if he could get a nurse or a nursing assistant of a different color, he definitely would. He did not pay that any mind. He literally jumped straight into, they're in here, they're after me, please help me. I'm looking like, who is they? He's like, you don't see that little boy behind you? No, I can't say that I do, sir. So it took me literally 15 minutes, and by the grace of God, I was able to calm this man down. We're going to call him Mr. Johnson. After I calmed Mr. Johnson down, I left out of the room, and I went and did my rounds like usual. Literally, not even 10 minutes later, he's back on the call light. I said, okay, maybe he's got to go to the bathroom or something. I don't know. So I went in, checked him. This time when I went in the room, I noticed that the room was extremely cold. Extremely cold. When I went in there earlier, it was not cold like that. Now, the nursing home, that nursing home in particular was a little colder on the graveyard shift. But when I tell you it was cold to the point where I could see my breath cold. At this point, not only is he in the fetal position, but he is also under the covers and he is also crying. So I walk up to him. I lift the cover up. I look under the cover. Again, he's sitting under there. We make immediate eye contact and he's like, help me, please help me. So I'm trying to calm him down because whatever he's seeing, I'm just not seeing it. So I'm like, Mr. Johnson, I'm going to need for you to cooperate with me. I'm going to need for you to tell me what's going on so I can better assist you and we can get through this shift together. At this point, I'm doing what I've been taught to do for somebody that's going through a dementia or Alzheimer's crisis, which is what I was told that he had. He calms down a little bit and he literally just starts talking. And when I tell you this got crazy quick, it got crazy quick. So he's telling me that when he was younger, about in his 20s or 30s, he was married to a young woman. We're going to call her Maggie. Him and Maggie had just bought a farm. It was literally just him and Maggie. And before you knew it, Maggie got pregnant. Back then, it literally wasn't uncommon to have people of color hired as help to help you on the farm, to help you raise kids, whatever the case may be. This was post-slavery, but people was very much still feeling entitled to doing whatever they wanted to do to people of color. So that's the time frame we in. He tells me that months go down the line, Whatever. He goes and he wakes up early one morning. He sees that his wife is a little uncomfortable. She tells him like maybe the baby's coming or whatever. He doesn't think nothing of it. He goes out, get on his tractor, and he does his farmer work. He has a farmhand named Tommy. Tommy is a black man, okay? Around lunch, he's guessing is when his wife went into labor while he was still out in the field. His wife called her mother-in-law, which was Mr. Johnson's mom, her sister-in-law, and his brothers came as well. Everybody's making sure that everything's going okay. The baby is finally born at some point. When the baby is born, I guess everybody in the room looked around at each other and realized that this baby was not in no way, shape, or form white. The brothers immediately take the baby and they go outside. His mom sits there with her and they go. They snatch this baby and they take the baby outside. Meanwhile, all this is going on. Him and Tommy are still out in the field. They took this baby out into a body of water. And I will not be saying what they did to this baby, but you can only imagine for the time period. Him and Tommy finally wrap up their work for the day and he heads back to the house. When he gets inside the house, he sees his wife sitting there with his mother. His wife is crying. His mom's just sitting there irritated and pissed off. He asks what's going on, and that's when she gives him the whole rundown that your wife was pretty much sleeping with your field hand, and this is the situation that you're in. So he asks, where's the baby? And the mom says, your brother's taking care of it. Don't worry about it. You need to figure out what you're going to do with her. Meanwhile, this is going on. His brothers have went and got Tommy out of the field. The things that they did to Tommy, again, I cannot describe it here on TikTok, but just imagine the torture and everything that he went through. They literally just left him there in that field. They left him there in the middle of the field. This man proceeds to tell me that when he finally figures out what happened and what his brothers did, they literally acted like nothing ever happened. And every night, Tommy and his son will come and visit him like clockwork. At this point, when I tell you the chills are running up my spine, literally every hair on my body is sticking up. I don't know what to say. I'm like, when they say frozen in fear, I was frozen in fear. Because it's like, as soon as he told me that story, I could pick up on what was in the room. Before, I couldn't pick up on what it was, but I could immediately feel something else in the room with us. After he told me the story, I finally got him to calm down and he went to sleep. He slept for literally a couple hours, and at this point, we're at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like clockwork, he hits that call light again. I go back in. I remember walking into the room and all of the sheets were taken off of the mirrors, which I thought was very strange because he wanted his mirrors covered up for a reason. I went over to Mr. Johnson and I touched him to make sure that he was okay, and this man was ice cold. He had died. As I went to leave the room to go contact a nurse, oh my God, I'm getting chills. I'm literally passing by this mirror, and as I'm headed out, on my left is the mirror. I turn and look in the mirror, and behind me, to the far wall of Mr. Johnson's room, I see a taller figure, and I see a shorter figure standing beside this taller figure that I would say is probably about the height of a 5-year-old child. I have never seen nothing like that in my life, ever. And I cannot explain the amount of fear that ran through my body, but I got out of that room so quick, I will tell you that. The crazy part is that when the nurse came in, we could not understand how these mirrors got uncovered. Even the one in the bathroom was uncovered. The one in his room was uncovered. Again, this is a man that just hurt his hip yesterday. There's no reason why he should have been out of bed taking these blankets off this mirror, and I know he wouldn't have done it anyway. Also, the fact that she felt like he had been dead for longer than I said he had. But again, I had just talked to Mr. Johnson. I had literally just talked to him. So I don't understand how a dead man talks, but maybe y'all can let me know. And when I tell you, baby, I only lasted 3 more days after that. I didn't sleep for days. I said, I'm not coming back. Y'all ain't gotta work.
Okay, so I know I haven't posted in about 2 weeks, but wasn't we just talking about this in the last video?
How ancestors have been popping up, for one, to help them, but also two, tormenting the hell out of these in their like older days. Like people that work in nursing homes talking about how these people are tormented by people that they have unalived or tormented at some point in their later days.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not tripping over here. There's this TikTok video going around about telling a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely true. So yeah, we just gonna get straight into the video. You already seen the first one, and that got 7.7 million views. This one is at 15 million views. Yeah, I don't know why people just want to watch ghost stories right now, but you know, for me being home by myself Yeah, let's just get straight into it.
A ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Trigger warning, I'm gonna mention, it's taken me so long to tell this full story because it's genuinely one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. So when me and my husband bought our first house, things started to get weird very quickly, but it took about 2 years before it all came to a head. The first thing that I noticed is every morning when I woke up, even though I had tucked all the chairs into the kitchen table, one chair was always in the same chair. It was always taken out from the table and facing down the hallway, which was where all the bedrooms were. That happened for a while, and it took me a minute to pick up on the fact that it wasn't my husband doing it and my husband picking up on the fact that it wasn't me. Then I started to walk down the hallway like at night, and I would see the chair facing me and nobody's sitting in it, but in the reflection of the like window right beside the table, there was always an old man sitting in the chair. I didn't think anything of it because he didn't seem to creep me out, like timelines passing, whatever. Then one night I'm having a
Wrap it up. Wrap it all the way up. And no, so nobody saw the Conjuring 2? Okay.
a dream, a sleep paralysis dream. So I'm like awake, but not really. And I see a shadow, a very tall, like 8 foot, very skinny shadow standing and leaning over my husband like this. He's sleeping. The next morning when my husband wakes up, I told him like, I saw the craziest thing standing over you. I don't mean to scare you, but I saw something. And he was like, stop, because I had a dream that I opened my eyes and there was nothing but like black staring at me. And then I told him what I saw. And like, I mean, you just like that kind of coincidence. A few months go by and then we're sitting in the living room, and this is a house that was built in the 60s. So we had this like big bay window in the living room, and we were on an acre, and basically all of that acre was our front yard. And we hear scratching on the front window, on the outside of the front window. And it wasn't anything like a raccoon, or it could have been anything like that. We were still in a neighborhood. And that just wasn't something we often saw. I mean, the front porch was literally like this big. I wouldn't even call it a porch. So me and him get kind of like uncomfortable and weird. We're like, let's go back to the bedroom. We go back to the bedroom and we lay down, and all of a sudden we hear such a loud bang. We thought that both of our bookshelves, we had like 8 foot tall bookshelves in our living room with we collect old books and like all the old National Geographics. We heard them fall, and both of our cats went running to the back of our house. They came running under our bed. And so we slammed the door. We start kind of like game planning, like, what do we do? We're thinking somebody's in the house. They just like busted our door down and the bookshelves fell, like something's going on. We get some protection and we go out to like see what's happening. Nothing was out of place. Nothing had fallen. Nothing. And we know we weren't crazy because our cats reacted. Then I had a baby and I brought her home, and babies always stare and do weird stuff. But one of my first viral videos was her staring behind me like this. I had her on my knees and she was looking behind me and she's laughing and playing with something behind me. And as I pan the camera, you see white movement like right here. The video's on TikTok, so we can find it. I would say about a month after that, I was rocking her in her room at night. I was fully awake. I was not dreaming. I was not sleepy. Like I'm full mom mode. I'm up. Her bedroom looked all the way down the hallway where that chair is facing me, as it has for the last 2 years that we lived there. And as I look up into the hallway, I see facing the corner, like looking into my bedroom, because her room's here and my bedroom's like here. So standing, looking into my bedroom where I'm in her bedroom, is a full-on hooved, extremely tall, horned. I immediately start praying. I immediately out loud start praying. And of course, this is at 3 a.m. So the next morning, I tell my husband, I saw something crazy. I'm getting out of here. And he said that he looked over on the monitor at about 3 a.m. and he saw something moving around in the bedroom. Mind you, this is when I was rocking her, and the monitor does not face the rocking.
You should have known when you first had the situation. People gotta be able to discern energy, because you're having scary dreams or projections of you seeing shit, and that's just coincidence. It's not. You picking up on energy, and most people only can recognize that through going to sleep. Why is it that? Why is that people figure out things when they're asleep, but they can't figure out it in their wake time? It's like we gotta build more discernment, because at this point, if it got to the point where the thing is really just full on turning into the worst fear thinking that's out in America, which is what looks like a demon. It's like, okay, let me just let her continue.
So I loaded up my baby. We went to a Catholic church, and I got christened. I got a christened cross, christened blessing. I filled up a whole water bottle and 2 little Tupperware things of holy water. I had an entire, like, the cross hanging on the entryway of our house. I walked around. I had one of my Catholic friends come over and bless our home. I walked around dousing holy water and praying over the entire house. I bathed my daughter in holy water. I bathed her in holy water. That's how much holy water I got. They probably thought that I was insane. And then every night before bed, I would bless her head, and I would bless every single one of, like, me and my husband and every doorway in our house. After that, we never had another incident. To this day, it's one of the scariest things that has ever happened to me, and I still carry that cross around. It's about this big, but it comes with us no matter where we live, and it's always over the entryway that leads to our bedrooms.
Okay, so this next video I'm about to play, y'all, is about the possibilities of what these ghost encounters could be like, and what is the reason for it. So just have an open mind while I eat my greens.
What if some hauntings...
Whole life I've been obsessed with astral projection, but I was watching a lot of astral projection stories when I was in like 2017 through 2019, and I came across one video and an astral projection experience of a girl that explains this situation so vividly. Now, this girl, she had astral projected. She rose out of her body and she started walking on the floor. She wasn't floating. She just started walking on the floor for some reason, and somehow, like, as she was walking on the floor, the room had shifted into a cabin, and she was inside of this cabin, but she was short, and her feet were smaller, and she felt like somebody was walking underneath her as she was inside of this little girl's body, and she was looking around the cabin, and it looked so familiar to her, and she said that she wanted to go back to her body, so she went back to her body and got up. And because the cabin looked so familiar, she called her mom and she asked, she was like, "Mom, have we ever been to a cabin before?" And lo and behold, they were. And the mother told her that when she was young and she was inside of the cabin that they visited, her mother walked in and saw her sleepwalking and walking in a straight line, just like how she was in her astral projection. So she saw the past of a memory that she didn't necessarily remember because she was sleepwalking in it. So it's like those type of situations when it comes down to us reaching beyond the fathoms of time and manipulating it, because I feel like the past, the present, the future, it's all happening right now.
Good morning. Since you all enjoyed my story yesterday so much, I decided I would tell some more. Because like I said, I worked in long-term care facility for a while, so I have stories for days. Unfortunately, just a little warning, I don't have any story that's going to top what I told yesterday. I told my best story first. But I would like to clarify that everything that I say is 100% true and nothing is a figment of my imagination, even though I really, really wish it was. Just a little history on me that's going to later pertain to this story. I'm a mom of 2. I have a son and a daughter. I have a 3-year-old daughter that has a heart condition. So it's the peak of COVID. I'm about 5 to 6 months pregnant, and I'm working the night shift again, 11 to 7. At this time, I'm working for an agency, so this agency sends me to different facilities every shift instead of just going to the same facility all the time. This facility that I went to this particular night, I had never been to before. When I walk in, the CNA that's leaving gives me a report, and she tells me everything about my residents, everything I need to know, who's total assist and who's limited assistance. She tells me about this one resident that I have, and the way that the list normally goes is that you have room numbers at least adjacent to each other. So for example, if you have room 11, usually I have room 12 across the hall, room 13 across the hall, depending on how the facility is set up. I literally had 9, 10, 11, and 16. 16 was all the way at the end of the hall. That was this resident at the end of the hall in room 16. This resident was at the end of the hall, and she was also in the room all by herself. She proceeds to tell me that when I go in this room, do not tell this resident anything about myself. If she asks anything personal, change the subject or lie. I said, okay. I mean, she goes on to tell me that this resident believes that she is the reincarnation of Jesus Christ himself. Not the craziest thing I've heard, but strange nonetheless. So I start my rounds, working from my first room all the way down to the end. Like I said, she's room 16. Again, I'm 6 months pregnant, so I'm probably moving a little slow. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I finally get down there to her room, and this CNA that was helping me out pretty much my whole shift, she comes with me. She said, don't go in there by yourself. She comes in there with me. The resident wanted us to help her find her remote because this resident was also blind. When I go to hand her the remote, she grabs my hand. She looks at me and she asks me what my name is. Again, the CNA told me not to tell her anything personal, so I lied and I told her that my name was Ashley. She kind of smirks. She takes the remote And she says, okay, ladies, that's all I need right now. I said, okay, easy enough. This is going to be an easy night. This is going to be a breeze. I go finish up the rest of my round. And by the time I finish up the rest of my round, her call light is on again. So I make my way down to the end of the hall. The nurse aide, she comes with me again this time. This resident was bedbound, but she could use a bedpan. She didn't want to use a brief or anything like that. At the time, we didn't have a bedpan in the room, so the CNA actually had to leave to go get a bedpan out of the supply closet. So I'm just standing there kind of waiting for the other CNA to come back. And the resident starts reciting Galatians 6 and 9. For let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. What's so interesting about this scripture is that that's literally my favorite scripture. After she says that, she looks over at me. I'm standing by the door at this point. And she asks me if I believe. I tell her, well, it depends on what we're talking about believing in. She says, do you believe in Jesus Christ? I said, yes, ma'am, I do. So she tells me, I am the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. So anything you do to me shall be done unto you. At this point, I'm like, where's this girl with this bedpan? I wrap it up. We get on the bedpan, get everything taken care of. I leave. I go out into the little staffed area and I go eat me some snacks and drink me something. And I'm just chilling, watching Netflix. About an hour or so later, her call light goes back off. At this point, the other CNA has went outside to take a smoke break. Instead of me making a huge big deal out of it, I just went down there by myself. I'm like, she probably doesn't even need anything. I go in her room and all the lights are off at this point. Her lights weren't off the whole shift. Like I said, it doesn't really matter because she was blind, but the lights were off. She was literally sitting in the dark. I go to reach my hand on the wall to cut the light on and she tells me to leave them off. I say, okay. So I go over to her to see what she needs. She turns over and she looks at me and she says, Brittany, you're pregnant, aren't you? Excuse me? I didn't say anything. Didn't say anything. She says, you're pregnant with a little girl. That's so sweet. Too bad your baby has a broken heart. Where's your God now? This is information nobody knew except for me, her father, and my close relatives. And when I tell you to this day, I still don't understand how that woman knew such intimate details about myself when I never told her nothing like that. Never told her nothing like that. Y'all already know what I did. Called up my recruiter. Yes, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I told her that I will no longer be returning to this facility. I'm going to finish my shift out. Do not send me back here. And I meant every word that I said.
Okay, y'all. So we just gonna wrap it up right there because I'm gonna see y'all in the next video. Let me know if y'all want to see a part 2 of these ghost stories. I love y'all and thank y'all for watching.